Okay, I want you to come up here. We're going to look at the bloodlines of these three sons of Noah in this: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Why don't you come on up with me? And what we're looking at here, through the bloodlines of Noah, we come down in Sumerian to the Utu, or the Shemesh. Come on up in here, the Shemesh. I think this is going to be a pinch of a unique journey for you. This is going to be a walkthrough about these special garments that came from the Garden of God. Now, Ham is who stole the garments of Adam and Eve from Noah. That was Ham. Now, in this Sumerian image here, we see the Utu, or the Shemesh, in Sumerian. Now, I want you to notice these three characters, these three little guys that are coming up right here before the sun disk. Now, this that I'm holding in my hand right here, this is called the Eridu Genesis account. It comes from Eridu. Eridu in Samaria is where the actual Tower of Babel was. Of this Sumerian, that's very prized. That's Utu right there. This is one of the prized characters in all of Sumerian legend. In fact, in the Sumerian kings list, this is the king that comes directly after the flood. Now, to put that in English, because we're going to amalgamate the Sumerian text, the ancient texts and ancient legends, with the biblical account. Followed by Cush, or Meshki and Gasher, the second coming after the flood through the lineage of Ham in both the Sumerian kings list and also your biblical text. Followed by number 3 down here, Nimrod. That's Nimrod, Cush, and Ham, one of the three sons of Noah, or in Markar in the Sumerian documents. Now in Yasher 7 it reads this, beginning in verse 23, "And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age. And she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time that the sons of men began to rebel and transgress against God. And as the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he, Nimrod, was the son of him, Cush's old age." And as we go back through time, all the way back to the beginning, to Genesis 3, we find these unusual garments. So, and I'd like you to notice the numbers in all of this. A lot of people say God doesn't use mathematics or numbers. The entire chapter of the Bible is actually titled Numbers. You have three sons of Noah. You have three generations from Ham, Cush, Nimrod. You have three temptations in the garden. You have three characters in the garden: Adam, Eve, and the serpent. We're in Genesis 3. We're going to talk about the blessings and the cursings of the three sons. First, we're going to come backwards in time and talk about the garden of God. In Genesis 3, verse 21, "And the Lord God made garments." That's the first time in the entire Bible that this word garments is used. The Lord God made garments. What were these garments? Of skin, for Adam and his wife Eve, and clothed them. Genesis 3. "And when the garments of skin, which God made for Adam and his wife, when they went out of the garden, they were deceptively given to Cush. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Yared. And when Enoch was taken up to God, he gave them to his son Methuselah." Now, Methuselah was the longest living man in the biblical text at 969 years. In fact, in that garden, God said, "In the day you shall eat of this, ye shall surely die." Well, God also says a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. No man in the biblical text lived over 1,000 years. Methuselah was the closest at 969 years. There are 10 generations from Adam, meaning man, down to Noah. 10, just like there were 10 plagues in Egypt in the Exodus, 10 is a number of completion. The Yod, it represents God himself. Enoch was the 7th from Adam. His name means teaching. He was the one who was not, for God took him. And if I read these 10 names in their literal meaning, it reads, man, appointed mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching, that's Enoch's name. His death shall bring, that's Methuselah. His death shall bring, God's death shall bring, the despairing, that's you and I, rest and comfort. Enoch was the 7th from Adam, and Methuselah died the very year, or 7 days, before that flood. Whatever the case, it tells us in Yasher, coincidentally 7, that when Enoch was taken, he gave those garments to his son Methuselah, who in turn, when the flood was about to come, Methuselah gave those garments to his grandson Noah. Noah took them, the garments, these special garments, given by God to Adam and Eve that had passed to the hands of Enoch. He gave them to Noah, and Noah brought them onto the ark. And the garments were with him, Noah, until he went out of the ark. And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah, his father. I have a feeling Ham did more than that. And he took those garments and he hid them from his brothers. You got to do something awfully treacherous if you're the only people on earth to get thrown out of the camp and said, get lost, son. Get lost. We don't want to see you again. And when Ham begat his firstborn, Cush, notice we've got more sons than just Canaan, the one who the curse was put on. But remember that the curse was put on Canaan. Why? But he's got these garments, and he decides to give them to Cush. The one who we read, or possibly read in the Sumerian text, took off in his old age on a boat. He gave them, Ham gave them in secret to Cush. And they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them, the garments, from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, the son of his old age, Nimrod was the baby, treated like the baby, told you the royal everything. That's who Nimrod was, the spoiled little brat of Babylon. He gave them, Cush gave them the garments to Nimrod, the spoiled little brat. He gave them those garments through his love for him. And as Nimrod grew up and he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. And when Nimrod put the garments on, he became strong. Buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be a journey where we talk about the garments from the Garden of God. And when Nimrod put on those special garments, he became Nimrod. He became the king, the tower builder that we all know today. The first king of all earth. The one who the Sumerians called in Markar, the mighty hunter. Just like in the biblical text, Nimrod is called the mighty hunter against God. This is going to be a story of spiritual light and spiritual darkness, just like the two trees. God says, I take the weak things with which I bind the strong. I take the foolish things with which I confound the wise. It's going to be one of the better journeys, guys. Before we can make it to our hours of the fires of Babylon, we're going to rewind backwards through the sands of time, all the way back through the flood, back to that Garden of God and the hour that Adam and Eve actually got those garments in Genesis 3. So up here, the serpent, or the Nakash, it says he was more crafty, he was more clever, he was more deceptive. Arum is the word used there. Than any of the other beasts or creatures that God has made. He was more arum. In this journey, I'm going to be using a combination of the actual biblical text with the Hebrew letters. These are pre-Canaanite Hebrew letters you see on the screen behind me. This is the word arum up here. The Nakash, the serpent, was more crafty, more clever. The serpent said, the Nakash said, to the woman, "You will not surely die." So Eve saw that the fruit on the tree and the serpent was there. He said, "Did God really say?" So he caused her to question God. And it says that Eve saw that the fruit was attractive to the eyes. That's a temptation of the flesh. Was good to make one wise. That's a temptation of the intellect. And number 3, that it would make one, the big one, that it would make one become as gods, as the gods. We talk about a serpent in the garden. We're actually talking about a creature called the Nakash. That's what's getting translated as snake or serpent, the reptile in the garden. And the word Nakash has 3 uses in one. As a noun, Nakash means serpent. That's where you get the definition. As a verb, it means to be divine. And as an adjective, a descriptive word, it means the shining one. So this is a divine serpent that is a shining one, a luminous serpentine creature, seeming angelic, wise, yet evil. And that's where we begin. More crafty, more arome than any of the other creatures that God had made. That comes from Genesis 3 up here, when they actually, the passage where they actually sinned. Genesis 3, beginning in verse 6. "And so Eve took of the fruit from the garden, from the forbidden tree," as seen right here, the tree of death. "And she took upon the suggestion of the serpent now encapsulating Adam and Eve." Now coming backwards to this word arum, it says the serpent was more crafty, more deceptive. That's in Genesis 3. Verse 1, and it's the first time that this word arum is used. Now the serpent was more crafty, more arum, than any of the other animals that the Lord God had made. And he, the serpent, said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree of the garden?" Then down in Genesis 3, verse 6. "When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eyes, also desirable for gaining wisdom, or to make one wise, she took of the forbidden fruit, and she ate, and she gave also to Adam, and he ate. And through this they noticed that they were naked, they were uncovered. She gave also some to her husband who was with her, and he ate also. Then the eyes of both of them were opened." Now, what do you think that means when it says the eyes of both of them, the 2 eyes of both of them, were opened? They were uncovered, and they hid from God. In shame, they hid from God. This wasn't just the one tree in that garden that they weren't to touch. This was the one tree in the entire world. Almost like the whole thing was a test. "And God entered the garden in the cool of the day, and he called out to Adam. And he found that they were naked, and they had covered themselves. They now needed coverings for their nakedness." The ayin can either be the light of God from Genesis 1, 3, or it can be the ayin ra. Now, the letter ayin, looks like an I right here, is the number 70 in Hebrew. This is a pre-Canaanite symbol, the pre-Canaanite Hebrew symbol ayin. But if that I be darkness, we're going to be talking about the ancient world here, the birthing of the god Sin from the ancient world. Enlil, Utu, the Enki, and Nana, Ishtar. Or on the flip side, it can be the Ayin Ra, the evil eye. In Matthew 6:22, that's how many letters there are in the Hebrew alphabet. 6:22. The eye is the lamp of the body. Therefore, if thine eye be single or full of light, then thy whole body shall be full of light. But if that light be darkness, then how great is that darkness? The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. And it was God himself who gave the first sacrifice. Seen right here in this image. Right here. God made a covering of skins. Whatever you imagine that to be on that sacrifice. That Adam and Eve in an innocent, beautiful garden world would watch something give its skin for the covering of sins. But the moment they bit into that fruit, then the eyes of both of them were opened. That symbol right there, the Vav, that's the number of man. Man was created on the sixth day. So when you're talking about the doctrines of devils, you're really talking about the doctrines of man. The entire Bible, beginning with Genesis. Genesis is the book of genes is. But that entire book is telling you that you are living in a tiny subset of a much larger and far more complex reality. The Hebrew Vav, that's actually the only letter right there that the rabbis believe connects heaven to earth. The Vav, the number 6, it's also the symbol for the nails that were in Jesus' hands. One in each hand and one in the feet. That's 3 Vavs, 3 6s, 3 nails. But whatever the case, when Adam and Eve disobeyed, and most rabbis believe they did that within the first week, when Adam and Eve disobeyed, and you could easily view this as the opening of a doorway through which later mankind would be actually bowing down to serpents and worshiping devils. And in that moment, Adam and Eve knew that something else had entered. That something had changed in that garden. And now, even as far back in history as we go, we have evidence from the very beginning, the very earliest cultures, that men have been worshiping spiritual, dimensional, their serpent gods. Or Baal, Dumazit, Tammuz, Pan, Enkidu, Enlil. And there again, the horned god, Sin. If the eye coming through the Arum, if that eye be darkness, then how great is that darkness? And they realized they were Aram. They had just taken on a property of the serpent. And we're going to talk about these 3 curses and the garments. So God created the perfect world. This is in Genesis 1 through 31. The perfect humanity. God created man in his image and likeness. You can clearly see that the same word up here for crafty of the serpent is the same word of what Adam and Eve had become when it says they were naked. And God gave man authority over all of the animals, over all the beasts of the field. God gave man authority over the world and instructed Adam and Eve to exercise rule over all of the animals and a perfect marriage. After creating Adam, the Lord made Eve. There they are underneath the stars. This is before the flood. And Adam's rib was to be his perfect companion. Now that's a fair picture of everything Adam and Eve lost in this, with the decision to listen one time to the snake, to give the snake authority and dominion in this entire place. In fact, if we look over here in the 3 Hebrew symbol word for light, and with Hebrew we read from right to left. So we're going to go from the word Arum, so the serpent was more crafty, which is the word Arum, down to Genesis 3:6, where the word naked is the same as the word crafty of the serpent. They're both the word Arum. It's a play on words. And their eyes were opened. So it required these skins, these special garments of skin. In Genesis 3:21, the Lord God made garments of skin. That's a three-letter word, the skin. We're going to hop backwards. We're going to look at the correlation between Genesis 3:21, where he made garments of skin, and Genesis 1:3, with the word, let there be light. We begin with the Aleph. The Aleph has the horns, just like the devil has the horns. He says, look, I've got the horns, I've got the horns. The reason he does that is because the horns represent authority. You have the Aleph, the Vav, that's the symbol for man. That's also the only symbol, if you remember, that connects, that the rabbis believe connects heaven to earth. The same symbol that was holding Jesus' hands to that cross. What was really holding him to the cross was his love for you and me. But you read the Aleph. The Aleph is called the father of the alphabet. In fact, the Aleph and the Bet is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, just like there are 22 letters, the Hebrew alphabet. This is the pre-Canaanite, or this is the original. That's the original tongue of earth. That's the original Aleph right there, the number one that starts everything. This is the modern Aleph. The modern Aleph is comprised of three parts. Each one of these little dots here is a yod. A yod is like a thought that dangles right between heaven and earth. It's the number 10. It represents God himself. So you have two yods. And between those yods you have a vav, which represents man. So you have the symbol for God, and between them, the symbol of a man. That's what the Aleph is. So the Aleph on the word light right here represents, the Aleph represents God himself. And this is before we make it over to our word skins, Genesis 1:3, and God said, let there be light. The word light starts with would be the Aleph, the Vav. The Aleph represents, it's the first letter. It's a silent letter. It starts everything, yet it's silent. And then the Vav, which represents the symbol for a man. And then the symbol of the Resh, that means head man or God man. That's the symbol in Genesis 1:3 for the light of God coming into this place. The Hebrew letters are very magical, particularly with the text of Genesis. In fact, the rabbis believe that when the Mashiach comes, when the Mashiach returns, not only will he explain the letters, but the spaces between the letters. The first two letters are the Aleph and the Bet. That's, of course, where we get the word alphabet. And the Aleph is the horns. God starts everything, God himself. But the word light in Genesis 1:3 might make one wonder if there was something that physically changed with Adam and Eve when they bit that fruit. Here's the word light right here. It says what these three symbols simply read. And I've got the translation for each one at the bottom. Aleph, silent letter that starts everything. Vav, the connector between heaven and earth. And the Resh means head man, God man, mind that God is using or working through. So we'd read this, the word light. It reads from right to left, God himself, coming through the man. The connector, that's the Vav right there, between heaven and earth, operating through the mind of the man. That's the symbol of the light right there. God operating between heaven and earth through the mind of the man. That's the word for light in Genesis 1:3. In the beginning, God, that's a 3 in 1, created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God flowing through the man, was hovering over the waters. Verse 3. And God said, let there be light. Now why don't we hop from there over to Genesis 3 and our word garments of skin. The word skins is the same word as light in its pre-Canaanite form. They're identical. Resh, resh, vav, vav. But wait a second. The aleph, or the symbol for God, which starts everything and starts this word light, has now changed to the symbol of the ayin. In fact, but if I hop over here to the word skins from Genesis 3, beginning in verse 1, we start now with the ayin, which can either be light or dark, just like the two trees in the garden. So now the ayin, not the aleph, representing God himself, but the ayin is working through the vav, which is the symbol for man, the only connecting piece between heaven and earth. So now the ayin is looking through the symbol of man and operating through the head of man, the head man or God man. Something has changed. And then if we fast forward in time to modern Hebrew, well, that symbol of the resh no longer even has its face. It's an empty head. An empty head. In Hebrew, this is the ancient resh, looks like the head of a man, means head man or God man or mind of man. This is the modern resh right here, where it's missing the face now. It's still sort of got the hair of the man, like it's over here, but it's actually missing the face. Now, in Hebrew, you can have instances where the ancient version of the letter means something far different, in this case, completely the opposite of the modern version of the letter. So the ancient version meant head man or God man or mind of man, and it had a face to it. Now, our modern resh that you'll find in modern Hebrew today is not only missing the face, but the symbol now actually means wickedness. So this progress from the ancient version of this entire word, with the end being head man or God man or mind of man that God would be using, has actually changed to a wicked, empty mind of man, through which the ayin operates between heaven and earth through the now faceless, headless, zombified modern man, is literally the progression of the symbols from Genesis 1:3 to Genesis 3:1, the fall of man, where they need the skins, and the ayin first takes its entrance with those skins. Now it reads, from right to left, darkness and the light of the all-seeing eye comes through the man. There's the vav there, the connector between heaven and earth. So now darkness may also enter through the man and have full reign in the weak, that's the modern resh, mind of man, is what's happened by changing from light to skins in that passage. Chapter 3, the fall of man, by the way. At the top, right up here, you have Adam and you have Eve. I'm Trey Smith of God in a Nutshell. I want to thank all of you for watching. This was the first 30 minutes of part 1 of the Genesis set that we're doing over on godinanutshell.com on streaming in the partners section. So this was only 30 minutes of an entire, roughly 2-hour video. In fact, I think this was a little less than 30 minutes of it. And if you thought the first 30 minutes was good, I think this one's going to knock your socks off, but I lay that in your hands. We're going to do an entire set of these. I'm going to try and do roughly one of them a month. The next one will be Legends of the Flood. I'm going to try and do better with each one than the last one. I really do want it to be unlike any set on earth. And I just want to say a prayer right now over all of you and over the United States of America. And I want to pray for mercy from the Lord so that we can keep teaching this kind of stuff. And so that people can know the dark stuff, the worst dark stuff, and the light, the moments that the waters parted. You're in hours of history that I believe are about a great awakening, for many eyes to open, and sometimes for there to be a great awakening, you have to see it all. And I mean, not just someone tell it to you, talk you through it, but you have to actually see it. The light stuff, the dark stuff. And that's what history is, his story. And really what we're doing in this set, and I hope to complete all of this year, we're going to go through the journey of Nimrod, the birth of Nimrod, the fires of Babylon, the building of that tower, the war he tried to go with Noah. You didn't hear about that before, did you? All the way through the Exodus. Joseph had these special garments, didn't he? All the way through the Exodus, the Pharaoh of the Exodus, and I'm hoping, I believe the Lord saved all of this back. Had me do these books, which honestly have been kind of one of the most difficult things sometimes, even to deliver. I had no shortage of troubles with these books, but sometimes anything worth doing is a lot of trouble. And there really is nothing like these. And we're fundamentally, what we're doing is walking through these books and walking through history. Real history. And I'd like for eyes to open. I just pray incredible blessings over every one of you that watch these things. The full version of this movie is available over at godinthenight.com. Again, I'm going to try and put up one of them a month or roughly. Might not meet that all the time, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to make some of these the best in the world. And Lord willing, we'll do that. I'm Trey Smith of God in the Nutshell. God bless every last one of you, all of you. Even the bad guys on the other side of the screen. Next one will be Legends of the Flood, which I've already got a lot of it done. They're all cool. Enjoy the film. Kick back. You're about to take a journey. You're about to soar and fly. I'm Trey Smith. God bless every last one of you and your families on the other side of the screen.